Welcome everyone. Today we'll have another Diablo 4 news digest. In this video, we'll have a look at some of the changes and also updates from the developers about Diablo 4, including the UI changes and also the announcement of the change of text out also front in the Diablo. So we can see a lot of comparison with Diablo 4 and also Diablo 2. We'll also be going into more details into one of the more debatable features that was removed from Diablo 4, which is the dungeon reset. We can see there's additional information from the developers and also how the community is giving the feedback. So there's a lot of mixed reviews, and the developers are clarifying the reasons behind why the dungeon reset was removed, and how can this actually lead to additional dungeon caps for the attempts of dungeons. So we'll talk about this on the second part of the video. Finally, we'll go through a list of dungeon events that will become available in the dungeons. And this also includes the potential to drop additional unique items from the dungeon related events. So we'll have a look at some of the posts which some of the viewers have found additional unique items within the dungeons and also events. So we'll have a look at how that is possible and how we can kind of make use of this, knowing the boosted rate of the events from 10% to 50%. Now coming over to our notes. As you can see behind me guys, a lot of information will coming from Reddit and also Warhead, and also we'll have information from Twitter from the developers. So if you guys do want the links, make sure you check the links below in the video to see additional information. So here the first information was from Warhead summarized from the Reddit. So the developers of Diablo was asked about the overlay, which is a feature that I realized was not available in Diablo 4 until later. So if you have a look at some of the posts of the previous overlay, you can see that Diablo 2, Diablo 3 all have an overlay. And let me see if I can make this bigger. So just to give you guys a better summary, you can see the Diablo 2 overlay is where you go through the map by clicking tab. And this allows you kind of run through the map with a more detailed overlay. But this was not the case for Diablo 4. And some of the players were asking the developers, why is this happening, and is there any plans to add overlays to Diablo 4? So the developers of Diablo 4 have replied from Rod Ferguson. He is saying there is no plan to have the overlay for Diablo 4. Now this is quite interesting because we have had this feature previously for Diablo 2, Diablo 3. We're not sure why it is this case for Diablo 4. Maybe the developers want to make the game more immersive and also less overlays to confuse the players. I have to say, when I first played Diablo 2, the overlay was very messy and I was getting confused with overlay. But after 3 hours, overlay was like a godsend. I can't live without overlay. So I wonder what is the intention behind the developers. Maybe they want shifting towards like a online game, like MMORPG, action RPG kind of mix. So that's why they're taking away the overlay. And let me know what you guys think about not having overlays in Diablo 4. Now coming over to our second news. Blizzard have announced previously that Diablo 4 will have in-game change for the front. Now if we have a look at some of the Reddit posts, we can see the comparison over here by Slay King over here. He was comparing the drops of legendaries and also unique items from Diablo 4 and also Diablo 2. We can clearly see the front is very different. And here we're going to see another front post about Foxmarker. He's saying that good front and WTF is this. So the front over here is actually from Diablo 3, I believe. And you can see some of the fronts over here, the writings is actually a little different with Diablo 4 with other front. So here we have a summary post from Warhead, which was stating that the front in Diablo 4 is likely going to be similar to Diablo 3 during the beta. But we can also expect a change of front when it comes to the launch of the game. Now, we're not sure exactly what the front will be, but you can see a bit of difference between the fronts, and we can see some of the fronts will have a lot more edgy feeling. And again, you got to see the comparison over here. Now, personally, I do prefer the front that is more immersive and that is also similar to Diablo 2. Because I feel the front over here with the current front in Diablo 4, it's less kind of Diablo-like, it's like a generic game-like kind of feeling, and I want something that's more unique. So personally, I'm all in for the change of front. And if you have a look over here comparing with Diablo 3, the front is very standard. So hopefully we get the front change and it will be a front that will kind of stand out with Diablo 2. Now coming over to the biggest part of today's video. Yes, we have talked about this in the previous video and in the past 2 days since the official release of the patch notes of the changes after beta, a lot of players were not too happy or confused or have mixed feelings on this particular update. And this is the update about the reset button for the dungeons will be removed in the game. And I guess in order to not provide a lot of mixed dramas and also feelings, I will try to be as unbiased as I can while providing you guys with some screenshots of the player feedbacks and also different feedback from different viewers and also different communities. So the first thing to notice is that Adam Fletcher and one of the developers for Diablo 4, they have posted additional notes on the reasons behind why the button was removed, the reset button. And just to give you guys a summary over here, we can see that the reset dungeon button was removed due to the potential for its abuse in the game. So some of the examples were given by the developers is that this allows us instant saving for the hardcore players. So let's say in a hardcore dungeon, and if you find yourself getting killed by the butcher or about to die, and you're running out of cooldowns or running out of escapes, and in order to save your character, you can press the instant reset button and teleport yourself out of the dungeon. I guess the developers didn't want hardcore players to have it going easy, right? And they kind of figured that this was one of the hidden methods the hardcore players were using. So this is one of the reasons they have shared. Now, some of our viewers have also raised the concern that the potential for abuse of this button with additional use of bot and also hacking. And as we know, there's always bots in the game. And having something that resets the dungeon could lead to the bots trying to farm a dungeon with chests, items, or even monsters at the start of the zone, which lead to reset multiple times and also abusing the game and also crashing the server. And over here, the developers also goes further to extend that the dungeons that allows us to reset might provide a reduced incentive for the players to play other dungeons or try different dungeons. Because once you just play 1 or 2 dungeons, you don't need to do other dungeons as the monsters will scale to your level. And this might lead to the players missing out some of the dungeon events that may be unique to the players, which we'll talk about on the next part. Now, at the moment, the developers have not provided us with a clear solution or clear update of how the dungeon reset button will be adjusted, and there's 2 things that players are really concerned about. The first thing is, are we going to have something that we only play the dungeon once and then it's super restricted, we can't play it again? Maybe we can only play each of the dungeon once a day, or maybe once a week. That would be terrible, right? Like heroic dungeons for World of Warcraft. So the concern of the player is how much restriction there will be after without the dungeon reset. Do we still get the dungeon back after completing the dungeon? Because I know there's a dungeon we farm the dungeon for the monsters but don't complete the dungeon. It takes a little while to complete the dungeon. So the key is having efficientness while we play the dungeons and also to be able to redo the dungeons. Now, currently, one of the solutions from the developers is that they are considering having attempt caps for the dungeons. So what that means is players may be limited to a amount of the dungeon they can play in a row, and this may be a way of limiting the player's ability to farm dungeons multiple times. So here you can see the notes over here from the developers, like having some reasonable caps on how many times some dungeons can be completed in a row to better support that style of the play. So this is kind of questionable because, I'd like to farm dungeon as much as I can, as much as I wanted. But the developers also goes on to say that if you're playing with a party or if another player starts a dungeon, you can join the dungeon and technically join a reset dungeon. But the comments over here have seen, and other comments I have seen, is that saying that, having to do co-op in a game for Diablo is not very solo player friendly. A lot of players like myself would like to play the game solo. And, I just want to do my own thing. I don't want to be looking for a party all the time just to get a dungeon reset. So let me know what you guys think about this, because there have been mixed feelings from the community, and there are some really good suggestions from the community as well. So here you can see the comments from Shift over here is saying that this would not be great for the solo players. And, at least having us as, a few caps per hour means that we can join the dungeons without having a co-op play. And here we can see from TSM Solid FPS that having the dungeon reset without limitation after unlocking all the dungeons might be very good. So what he's recommending is maybe after we complete all 120 plus dungeons in the game, and then we have the function to reset dungeons. And this can take a form away from the hackers and also the bot abusers. And this can still provide hardcore players for a reward to reset the dungeons to save themselves. Now, before we finish this part of the news, we also have a bit of the final information. The developer seems to be suggesting that the Nightmare Sigil is an intention to maybe reset the dungeons or to change the availability of dungeons. So this is said in the final lines of the comment over here. We don't have more information, but once we get our hands on the Nightmare Sigils after level 50, I'll test this out and let you guys know how we can reset the dungeons for more rewards on the next part. Now coming over to our final part of the video. Over here, I want to make a list for the Diablo 4 dungeon and also events that will be available when we come to the dungeons. And if you guys have seen the previous video, the dungeon rates actually went from 10% to 60%. So this is an increase for 500% or 5 times more events in the dungeons. So what that means is we can expect some of the random events to be appearing in the dungeons. And here I want to provide you guys with a list of dungeons that will be available, a list of events that will be available in the dungeons. And of course, here we have some of the working process information. Because we don't have all the information from the launch of the game, we're still waiting for that. We're still work in progress. And you can see on the final part, I'm asking you guys if you have any beta experience or anything you've seen in the dungeon events, let us know in the comments below, guys, so we can work towards into making this list and also provide more information. So over here you can see that I have listed that the Cursed Chest and also Cursed Shrines is available for most of the dungeons. And this likely will provide us with 1 minute 30 seconds of slaughtering monsters in about 5 different waves. This is really good for experience, and also you can get legendary items from the monster drops. Even at lower rate with the launch of the game, we can expect some really good loots. The second potential random events in the dungeons is the spawn of the Butcher and also Goblins. Those are definitely more rare spawns. I do see more Cursed Chests and also Shrines compared to those monsters. And some of the viewers are really unsure whether this is an event for the dungeon or this is like a monster spawn. This is yet to be confirmed. And over here, I had a look around. We do see there is a post over here from Bomako, and he is asking what are the lists of the dungeon events. And then that's what I was asking as well. So I had a look at the comments below. Some of the players were saying, rescue NPCs, collecting souls and so filling up the jar, and also slaying different monsters in the dungeons can be a random event as well. And there could also be possibility of a region-related event. So as we travel to different regions of the map, we may be seeing different region-related event. Currently, we only experience the first region. And other players have suggested that there can be monster families that provide more additional jobs for certain parts of the items. For example, it was teased in the Diablo 4 trailers that skeletons will drop additional rate for pens. And if you're looking for unique pens, maybe you find events and also dungeons with pens as well. Now, one thing is quite interesting over here. This is a comment from Lucien Ducci over here. And he is saying there may be event-related things that could drop unique items. Now, I'm not sure if this is, the case, or we're still in speculation over here. So bear with me. So notice on this comment, so this is coming from one of the comments over here. And what we can see is the comment he was saying he knows there's a werewolf dungeon, which is the one I always test. If you see my previous guide videos, I always test in this dungeon for the werewolf boss. There's a werewolf dungeon that there's a chance to get a 3 FX rare werewolf that can spawn with additional monsters. Now personally, I have seen this particular event, but I didn't interact with it because I was too busy testing my build. So he further on goes to explain that there's a woman crying on the floor for help, and after interacting with her, you can spawn the elite monsters. And here he says that he was able to get a bunch of yellow rare items and also a unique ring to drop from those monsters. This is actually quite interesting. I was not able to find 1 unique items in the game. And to be able to find unique items from dungeon related events, maybe it's a random occurrence, maybe it's related to the 3 affixes of the monster. Because we know the more rare and also more affix the monster has, maybe it's got a better drop rate. And having 3 affixes then means maybe he was gaining access to tier 3, world tier 3 monsters. And this allows the drop of a unique ring. So quite interesting, right? So let me know what you guys think, and how can we make use of this kind of events and also random events in the dungeons for better loot or better resource gaining in the game. Now, if you guys have experienced something in regards to dropping additional uniques or different events in the game, or maybe more tips and also more guides as you experience the open beta, make sure you guys let me know and let us know in the comments below. And if you do want to provide me with more information to share with the community, make sure you look into our Discord and also send me a direct message through Discord. I'll get back to you, and then we'll look into more information to share with the community and as we prepare for the launch of the game. Now, before you go, and if you guys didn't know, we have a new YouTube channel. And if you guys haven't subscribed, make sure you subscribe and check out the behind the scenes and also fun clips and also more stories about us. And then you get to know me a little more personally instead of just reading the news and also the games, right? So I want to share a little bit more with you guys. So make sure you check this channel out if you're interested about Matt and also Uni. She's really funny too, and she's really shy. So I want to give her a surprise and do a shout out for the new channel to get some subscribers. Thank you guys. I'll see you guys next time.